The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. A sunny day here in Southern California. Not sunny inside the Simmons house. Mourning a shocking Patriots loss. I don't know where to begin. But we might as well begin with Cousin Sal in the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. What's happening?
I'm surprised you could even tell it's sunny. I figured you'd have the shades drawn and you'd have yourself holed up in some kind of bunker in the man cave. I don't know. How you feeling?
I'm all right. I went through the 7 stages of grief in the second half.
Yeah.
Because it became pretty clear right around midway through the fourth quarter that not only were they not going to win, but the Jets were better. I got to say it. They're better.
Really? Better just yesterday or better overall?
They played better yesterday. That's why we have the playoffs. You're supposed to, if you're better, you're supposed to play better in the playoffs. I think the thing, the two things the Patriot fans are worried about were the fact that Brady was really carrying that offense. So if you could shut him down, you'd shut down the offense. It's not like we had a bunch of guys that would make plays. It was him kind of pulling the strings for everybody. And then defensively, it's a young defense. And the Jets just didn't make any mistakes. The Pats made like 10. Tough one, Sal. Tough one. The fake punt, though, Belichick really, I thought, did a bad job.
Well, I did too. And what's up with that fake punt? Is that Belichick's call, or was it Chung, or what am I reading now? This is insane if Chung is able to change the game like that, just on a whim.
That's one of those things they never kind of let out who's responsible for that, but I really hope that's not Chung just audibling the fake punt there.
Yeah, well, there's at least one report saying that that's exactly what happened, but it seems like the entire right side of the line wasn't aware of that, even had he handled the snap cleanly. He's going to get stuffed in the backfield. But
the thing with the Pats this year is that they were great at coming out at halftime, and in that third quarter, really laying it on or making whatever adjustments. So, when it was 7-3 and we were going to punt there, I was just in my head, I'm thinking, all right, well, we'll get out of this. It was a bad half. Everybody played badly, but we have the ball. We're down 4. We're home. Things could be worse. But that fake punt really just killed it. And now all of a sudden,
there were a lot of turning points in that game. I think you need to blame yourself a little more, because I've been around you enough, and I get on your case for being down on your team when they're dominating, and I don't know if it's an act or what, but I think you need to stick with that, because as soon as you become overconfident, the Pats seem to screw you. And
but the thing is, I wasn't overconfident yesterday, because during that Seahawks-Bears game, it was a blowout, and I was muttering that whole game, this is bad for the Pats. Right. There's never 2 blowouts, and you're like, shut up, stop it.
You're right. But all week leading up, you're like, we're going to kill him. But no,
I did
you're
think
right.
that.
It doesn't make any sense. But as soon as the Bears were blowing out the Seahawks, it shouldn't matter that Matt Forte is reeling off 8 yards a clip for a carry, but it shouldn't have anything to do with whether or not the Jets defend Brady's mid-range pass, catch and go.
Yeah,
but it does. It seems to have an effect. I don't know. I can't even explain it, bud.
I was rooting for either the Seahawks to win or for that to be a barn burner, come down to the wire game, and it was over. John Carlson, as he was losing consciousness when his head hit the turf, that game was over.
Yeah.
But it is weird. It's a weird thing. And, when you think like every round there has to be one shocker, it seems like now. It's just football in this decade.
Yeah.
Every round there has to be one game where people go, can you believe that? And Chris Berman has to come on and do his crazy, crazy weekend. And it's just we could never just get through a weekend with just 4 normal results.
Yeah, and is it asking a lot that 2 10-point favorites just win at home on the field? But
right.
it's even worse that the 2 games in the last 2 weeks that everyone was sure of. The Saturday games were a toss-up this week, and people like the Seahawks. Maybe chances over the Bears, but everyone loved the Pats over the Jets. Everyone loved the Saints over the Seahawks, and the bettors just got killed. Killed in those two games.
It is funny though to get emails and tweets from people like, you were so confident. It's like, we were 9-point favorites. if you thought there was going to be a result other than the result that we had yesterday, you should have gone to Vegas and bet it, because you would have made 3.5 to 1 odds.
It's true. It's even funnier that people were tweeting in my voice I used to imitate you.
Yeah, how did they do that?
That's odd. But let me ask you this. One thing about the streaks are nice and everything, but one thing about a streak coming to an end is it throws everything out of whack. Like, as soon as Brady threw that interception, the Jets' confidence shot through the roof, and that's why he should throw one. Just every couple of games. Yeah, just throw one out there, just so it's not so startling when it happens and the team falls apart.
There was a lot to be disturbed by as a Pats fan, most specifically the fourth quarter drive that. We were on the other side of it in Super Bowl 39 when the Eagles they were down 10. It just took forever to go down the field, and there was no urgency. And even though they were moving the ball a little, I was at that game, and their fans were just going crazy. There was just no urgency at all. And now we had the flip side yesterday with the Patriots, where, they're acting like that game had 5 quarters.
To say no urgency is putting it mildly, because they ran the clock down to 2 and 1 every play. If they had run it down to 10 and snapped it, they'd be like, "Oh, come on, this is crazy." But you're just running it down to 1 and then handing off to Woodhead and hoping for the best. Like, what's the plan here? I mean, you're really only going to have 2 shots at this. Yeah,
and Hench and I were watching it together. We were at the bar for the first half. We left, came back to my house hoping a venue change would work, and it didn't. But we just assumed in the third quarter that they were going to go no huddle, because the Pats are really good at no huddle and just keeping the other defense on the field, and you can't make substitutions. I thought they'd play most of the game that way, and they didn't. It was weird. The whole game plan was weird. Brady's performance was bizarre. He didn't seem like he had any feel for what the Jets were doing. I thought that was one of the worst games he's ever had. He's had bad games like that in the regular season, but you think back to that Pittsburgh game they played this year when he was he was fired up, and you could tell that he thought they were going to win, and he's barking at guys on the sidelines. There was none of that yesterday. Mm-hmm. He looked rattled from 5 minutes in.
The revenge factor seemed to play in a couple of these games, like Green Bay over Atlanta, and obviously the Jets, and to an extent the Packers. Green Bay over Atlanta and the Jets. But I don't know. I'm thinking. Let me ask you this: like, Rex Ryan, any chances this is true? I have a theory. Like, I think he's a genius, and he doesn't have a foot fetish at all. I think that whole thing is a scam. I think he and his wife set it up. They made a tape. They knew it would prompt eventually someone on the Pats, Wes Welker, to take a shot. And Belichick gets pissed. He benches him. The very important first drive ends with Brady throwing his first interception in decades on an ill-advised screen pass to a running.
Terrible pass, yeah. To Ben Jarvis, who we never throw to.
Just a theory, but.
Well, it's an interesting theory, and I can't. It almost seems like their season got so ridiculous that there was no way for them to be distracted anymore.
Yeah.
It's like if you're just if every week there's something new, after a while it just becomes part of who you are. And
true.
From Hard Knocks on, this team has had distractions and cameras and quotes and incendiary things. I will say the Welker thing really hurt the Pats. I think it really, you read those quotes afterwards, and it fired the Jets up, which is bad. It made them, they had that nobody believes in us thing, but now they had real anger toward the Patriots because they felt like Welker brought Rex Ryan's wife into the whole thing.
Right. And what's really the point? What message are you sending if you're sending him out there to return the punt, but then benching him for the...
Yeah, I don't get that. Well, I mean, it fired them up, and then...
Yesterday, just a mess.
Well, then we didn't have him for the first series.
Right.
Which also didn't help, because that was, it was a mess, the whole game. And it's weird. I'm not that bummed out by it, because I just felt like you just watch that game and you're like, yeah, obviously this team's not that good because they just completely shut them down. You shouldn't just be able to play 6-7 defensive backs and completely shut down an offense that was averaging 40 points a game for 2 months.
It's all about like a couple plays just changing momentum and building confidence. And like we just talked about, like Brady's interception, like the Jets, like even though they didn't score a missed field goal afterwards, that defense was fired up and they could do no wrong after that. At least they thought. Yeah. And like there was like a 35-yard pass for Sanchez to Braylon Edwards, going from left to right. I don't know if you remember. And then, and then, okay, so now he's got confidence. Like, that's all you need. It's none of the rest matters really.
He had, I thought, a really good game, and he was so bad last week against the Colts. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the difference was between that week and this week. And then you think like that Colts game, that, you know, if the Manning to Blair White catches that game's over. Cromartie doesn't run the kick to the 50. And now this Jets team, they could absolutely go into Pittsburgh and get to the Super Bowl.
They can. I think they feel it. And like that Santonio Holmes is just, honestly, if he doesn't make that catch, they're up 6, right? They kick that field goal.
Yeah, it was a great catch.
6. And then it maybe makes sense to take 8 minutes off the clock to pass. Just try to drive and score how you can. But
they made great plays. Like, you go down the line. Like, Sean Ellis was great. Holmes made an awesome catch. Sanchez made all good throws. He didn't kill them in any way. Didn't fumble, whatever. Their offensive line protected him. I thought Tomlinson had a couple good moments. So did Green. Cotchery was great. Cromartie had good kick returns. Revis shut down everybody. Cromartie that never had that pass interference he always has. Right. I just thought they played great. You got to hand it to them.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot to say about mixed simulated pressure, the 3-word phrase that's been going around. Like, I think you asked yesterday, you're like, I don't understand how they protected Brady all year, not yesterday. But really just the answer, mixed simulated pressure. You just mix it up and dress 11 D-backs and clog up the middle with the safety, and that's the answer all this time.
That was the part that I don't get, is they protected him for 17 weeks. And in that game, it was like they had, major offensive line injuries or something. But, looking at this big picture, it's disappointing. They were the favorites to win the Super Bowl, all that stuff. But if you told me in August, like, this was how the season was going to play out, I probably would have been like, cool, we're going to go 14-2. Yeah, absolutely. And they have 3 of the top 33, and maybe next year is the year that this team was meant to win the Super Bowl. I don't know.
But it's all about learning from mistakes, and shouldn't they finally, now they have 27 first-round picks, and draft a receiver that can stretch the field? It's too much pressure on Brady.
That's the thing. I'm going to have so we're going to do the usual rotation today. I'm going to talk to Lombardi about that, because it did seem like the Pats were playing with a 10-yard field. Yeah. And they never, ever, ever – they throw it once deep to Gronkowski.
Well, a lot of times he just didn't have time to look around and go deep. But otherwise they really didn't test it.
Probably a good idea to throw deep to Cromartie like twice, just to let him bump somebody, knock somebody down, whatever. I will say though,
to throw a flag, just do it.
The sneakiest move in the offseason was that Santonio Holmes trade, because that guy makes big catches.
He really does.
And they got him for nothing. And I know why Pittsburgh got rid of him, and I know he has some baggage, and I know he's a head case and all that, but that guy comes through. He's the Randy
Moss everybody wants. He's the Randy Moss that worked out.
Yeah, that guy comes through. And you'd think of some of the other teams that could have used him. It's hard to believe. What was it, a 4th-round pick for him?
I think that's all it was.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's do the lines and we can keep talking. I like these. This is fun.
These will be good.
It's fun when it gets down to 2.
It kicks off at 3 Eastern on Sunday. Packers at Bears.
Great game.
Yep.
Fired up for it. Old school.
I can't believe they haven't played since the 40s in the playoffs. But.
I know, it is crazy. I have the Packers by 3 just because of the Aaron Rodgers performance on Saturday night was outrageous. And now you have to think, after how Brady played in that game, after how Breeze played, and I know this isn't, it's a total knee-jerk thing, but, man, if you had to pick any quarterback right now at this moment to have for a game, you'd have to pick Rodgers. He was unbelievable in that Atlanta game.
Absolutely. And I thought he was even more outrageous than you did, so I made the line 4.
Okay.
And you were right. It's 3. But moving towards 3.5. It's 3 minus 130 right now on most books.
Yeah. Well, Cutler was I thought really good yesterday too, and just Rodgers blew him out of the water. Rodgers, they had that montage at SportsCenter of Rodgers ducking out of sacks and spinning in these weird directions. And you think Brady yesterday when he got pressure, like how uncomfortable he looked, and Rodgers, it was like I don't even know if Atlanta played that bad in that game because they had a bunch of moments where if they had just gotten that sack or if they had tipped his hand one time or anything, and it was just every time he just killed them, and after a while I think it ruined them.
They were very close to ending a lot of drives, and one in particular was him rolling left. I think he avoided like 3 guys and rolls left, and then hits was a driver on a 3rd and 13.
He did that. He was facing the right side of the field. The guy was coming straight at him, and he somehow spun toward the left side of the field, and they just started running.
Yeah,
and you just don't see people do that.
Yeah,
I thought he was incredible.
And conversely, if you're the Green Bay GM, was it Peterson? You might want to tell some of these fans to F off. I mean, you passed on Favre's 3 crappiest, most scandalous years.
Yeah.
And as a result, you have a top 2 or 3 quarterback. So
Ted Thompson.
Sorry, what did I say? Peterson. Yeah.
Well, they must have had this. I mean, you assume Rodgers was showing a lot of flashes of this 3-4 years ago. They must have just been in practice going, wow, we got to get rid of Favre.
Yeah.
We just nothing to do with Favre. We just got to put Rodgers.
Someone must have seen something. But
it was just an incredible performance, and especially, the one thing we were talking about, because we watched 3.5 games together this weekend. Mm-hmm. The Packers are really a dome team. Yeah. And it's something I didn't fully realize until that Atlanta game, but it ties into when they put up the 45 in Arizona last year. That's just it's an outdoors team. And you don't think of them as a dome team, but you put them in the dome, and they just seem different.
I guess so. I mean, you wonder now, all right, I'm going to go probably with the fact that Aaron Rodgers puts up 30-plus points as a playoff quarterback, because that's what he's done in the last 3 games. Yeah. Or do you count the dome thing? And, when they played Atlanta a month ago or whatever, they only scored, 14 or 17? So.
Yeah, but remember, we watched that game. They had all those dumb turnovers and penalties. They put up over 400 yards.
He fumbled at the 2, I remember. Yeah. I think they're for real. And I think they're favored to win the whole thing now, right? They're plus 140 to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that AFC-NFC line, and it was -4, and we're thinking, man, that should be at least -6, and now it's -1.
We locked in at -1, and then something happened? Something happened that sent it to 4. I think the
Patriots winning every week by 30 points, I think.
Yeah, right. That shot it up to 4, and the NFC, no one was emerging from the NFC week 8, so we jumped on it, and we were like, look at us now, and now it's back to 1, I think. So yeah, I don't know. But
so we
the Bears killed me yesterday, though. The Bears killed me. I know you had Seattle plus the points, but I love the Bears in a blowout. I had them to win by 14-17. I had them to win by 18-21. And 22 plus. 18-21 was 8-1 odds. I was like, this is great. 28-0 late in the 3rd, 35-10 in the 4th. How do they come back those touchdowns? Do we read into those garbage touchdowns? Is Rodgers going to have fun with this defense? Or?
It seemed like it was 28-3, and they had Forte through that ridiculous halfback option. That was a classic Mike Martz moment. Yeah. It would have been really interesting if they went for the 2 from a Vegas sportsbook standpoint, because the Seahawks were down 12 with a minute 20 left. Yeah. And they kicked the extra point. We were debating it at the bar. My theory of the 2-point is you go for, if you have to go for it at some point, it seems like you'd want to go for it when you have the defense is kind of reeling. Yeah. And that they had turned it around so fast to them, and they'd scored in 3 plays, and they had so much momentum. I would have gone for it there, but a lot of teams just seem to wait until it gets to 5, and then they go for it.
They always seem to wait until it gets to 3, 8, or 5. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they probably would have scored there.
Yeah, if it's gotten to the point where you're like a train and you're just rolling, then I think you should go for it. But it would have been exciting. It certainly would have been the most exciting push attempt.
Definitely. After 2 hours of nothing going on, no rooting interest in that game. Yeah,
it was 28-3, and Chicago had the ball. What was it? Was that in the 4th quarter?
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been an incredible push.
Yeah, 35-10.
Pete Carroll did the classic where he went for it was 28-0, 4th and 9, and he kicked the field goal. to cut it to 25. That was smart.
These guys have resume. Like, it doesn't, I don't know. Does it come down to the resume? Like, hey, I've never been shut out in the playoffs. Like,
yeah.
We'll try to win, you know?
Yeah. How about this idea? You need 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, remember all those touchdowns you scored last week?
Yeah.
Came out of nowhere? Maybe do it again.
I don't regret taking the Seahawks.
No?
I really don't. I think it was just one of those games. Like, Carlson got hurt right away. They dropped some passes. They couldn't stop them, though. They couldn't. They were kind of scoring at will, like I said. I know, but it was a lot of points. I mean, you think like that line finished at 11. Like, it was just...
Yeah. Cutler gave them a chance. He threw it like he was playing dodgeball at one play. He felt bad. He threw it right in, who was it, Babineau's hands?
I'd say they dropped the interception. They dropped a bunch of passes.
Yeah.
They didn't... Anyway, whatever. So Packers 3, we think that goes to 3.5.
I think so. It's on its way now to 3.5.
I would say that's the best case scenario for playing Rodgers in this Packers offense right now, is to get them outdoors and hope that it's like 20 degrees and icy and all that stuff. That's what you want.
You can't ask for better conditions if you're the Bears, but the Packers are just better, it seems.
Seems like they're better, yeah.
Game 2, later start, Jets at Steelers. What? Patriots aren't in? No, Jets at Steelers. Yeah.
God. Really? We couldn't have been in this game?
By the way, before I get to this, that you did, I have to play these messages. I'm sorry. I hadn't actually heard from you in a while after the Pats game. And then
I didn't remember this.
Yeah, and then, out of nowhere, you called me. You were distressed. Hold on, let me see if I can get it here. Cousin Sal, I just took Rufus for a long walk, covered 75,000 miles in 3.5 hours. Terry Fox would have been proud of the progress we made. I don't know what to say. I'm devastated. You root and you root and you root, and something near and dear to your heart, and you're positive of the outcome, and then this happens. Jane Lynch wins a Golden Globe for supporting actress over Sofia Vergara. That's a travesty if I ever saw one. What? That's a laugher, a 37 on the unintentional comedy scale. Sofia Vergara is hotter than a thermometer in the sun's ass. And until Glee starts covering Pearl Jam tunes, I'm not watching. Now, excuse me, while I go back with my boy Josh Freeman as we finish off watching the $6 Million Man fighting Bigfoot on a loop. Peace out.
I was very upset about Sophia. Yeah.
You had a cold, too. It was weird.
Yeah, that was good. I like it. I don't even remember leaving that.
Oh, boy. What are you going to do? Jets at Steelers.
This one's pretty easy. It's got to be Steelers by 3.5.
I think eventually it will be. But right now it's 3, and I said 3. So we split. But that's also 3 minus 130. So they're both favorites. Packers and Steelers are moving towards 3.
That's going to be 3.5.
Yeah.
Who do I root for as a Patriots fan in this game? I can't say I was pleased by the Jets' behavior in this game or after. Yeah, I wasn't pleased.
Controversial of you.
Wasn't pleased. I'm not going to do the sour grapes we lost thing, but let's just say that if the Patriots had run off the field in the Meadowlands doing all that stuff and then gave some of the interviews that the Jets gave, I think people would be raking them over the coals right now.
Let me say this. I could have seen, this is what I envisioned. Sean Green runs it in for a touchdown, it ends up being kind of dumb, right, to go up 2 scores.
Pretty stupid.
And the Pats go and they score back. But I thought Sean Green goes down at the 1, so the Jets just kneel. Sanchez kneels 3 times. On the 3rd time, he throws Santonio Holmes.
The play action? That would have been good. That would have been the ultimate FUTD.
I said, that's it. That's how they're going to rub it in. But I think you root for the Steelers. The Jets have to be your most hated team. And I was talking about yesterday, I said, who's your most hated coach of all time? And Rex Ryan, if he's not there, has to be moving up, right?
I had a couple Jets fan friends sent me taunting emails last night.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
I just responded listen, that was the 2nd biggest win in your franchise's history, and it was a round 2 playoff win. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
But I will be rooting for the Steelers this weekend.
Yeah. That's that is a toss-up game. I know you're not ready to pick a winner yet, but it's as good as it gets there.
I need to know how many offensive linemen the Steelers have left, because At some point during that game in the fourth quarter, they brought some other guy in, and the announcer said, they literally don't have any other offensive linemen. They're out. That's it. That's the last reserve they had. So
they actually picked 3 guys up from the Biggest Loser. I don't know if it's going to work, but you have to try anything. It's a playoff.
It's a little worrisome. It just seems like everything's breaking for the Jets.
Yeah.
Get that nice offensive. I'm sure Rex Ryan will design some nice blitzes.
Yeah, it's nice when you have 2 running backs who could, carry 20 times each, and could near 100 yards, and the defense keeps you in every game.
You might be right. That line might not move.
Maybe not. Teaser, Jets +9.
You
Packers. I don't know.
You might have made a wager this weekend of a Bears Patriots parlay.
Yeah. Bears Patriots money line parlay. I kind of went for broke. I hope none of my relatives are listening. I don't think they are, but I went for broke and became broke as a result. At some point, I know you're the big Patriots fan all your life, but there has to be a dollar amount where people feel worse for me than they do you, right?
I think we hit it. I think we're there. And the worst part is you could have absolutely hedged at halftime somehow.
Yeah.
But then we had to run the fake punt, and then all of a sudden, it's a different game going into halftime, and there's no way to hedge it.
Oh, yeah. And the Jets were getting 9.5 in the second half. And when the Pats put up 8 at the end of the third quarter, and it's 8-0 in the second half, I'm like, oh, thank God I didn't take the Jets in the second half. That would have been miserable.
Yeah.
And then it came to a grinding halt.
Yep.
Oh,
well,
God.
I'm sorry, Cousin Sal. On behalf of all the Patriot fans, I really thought we were going to play better. I don't know what happened. We played badly. We deserve to lose.
God forbid 2 10-point favorites win on the same day. So stupid.
And for the Patriot fans out there, just remember, we got the 17th pick. I think we're going to have like the 24th or the 27th, 28th, somewhere in there, and then 30th, 33rd. So hopefully one of those picks will be a receiver that can run more than 10 yards.
Yeah, you should draft just an agitator, just someone who just gets in Jets camp and makes things miserable. Well, just practical jokes all the time.
A trash talker?
Yeah, you got enough draft picks.
All right.
It's embarrassment of riches.
Thank you. All right, we'll talk to you next.
Let me just tell you, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Randy Jackson, Don Rickles, Ryan Gosling this week, Kourtney Kardashian, the great Terry Bradshaw finishes up the week. So
he's still alive?
Look for that. Yeah, I think he is. He's shooting with Rex Ryan, but he's still alive.
That's awesome. All right. Well, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, Billy. Take care.
All right. Good job. All right. Let's swing over to from FootballOutsiders.com on every week on the podcast. Aaron Schatz, what's happening?
Hey, man. How are you doing today? You recovering all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. We just didn't play well. What do you want?
Yeah, me too. It's amazing how people thought like we were going to go into some sort of like catatonic trance.
It was to me. It was
played better. And what are you going to do? It's a football game.
They played much better, and like the Giants game, I think that was a Super Bowl, obviously, so it had different stakes.
And
but
because
also,
it was late, and because the late touchdown.
Yeah, but that was much worse for just how the way that game played out, having the game-winning drive, and then getting them on 3rd and 15 or whatever it was,
right.
the helmet catch, and then the Hail Mary to Moss, which you just missed. Like this game, it became pretty clear right around, I don't know, somewhere during the third quarter that they just had our number.
When they didn't score on the first drive of the third quarter, you said to yourself, they're not going to solve this.
Yeah. So what do you think they did?
That the Jets did?
Yeah.
They had some very interesting coverage schemes. They put 9,000 defensive backs out there, and there was just nobody open. It was amazing. There was just nobody open. And they were rushing 3 some of the time and getting pressure. Sean Ellis had an amazing game.
Yeah.
DeVito and Pua also played well, but Ellis was the guy who was just out of his gourd. We were talking player of the game in the press box, and I said Ellis. I mean, I think the person I was talking to ended up going with Santonio Holmes, and Holmes had a great game. But I thought Ellis was really top-notch.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. And, you look at this Patriots team, did not have a guy like that on defense that could do that.
No, I think that's the biggest need. Now, some people were talking about they need to stretch the field. I think the biggest need is that they need a pass rush. I don't think, the offense didn't play that bad when you consider just how well the Jets defense played and how well they schemed. That's not a bad offense. That's a great defense.
Yep, and, we knew this all year. It was a two cast-offs at running back, 2 slot receivers as your receivers, 2 rookie tight ends. It wasn't like this was, the all-time juggernaut. It was really Brady who was the guy.
Tate's a deep guy. Tate is a developing deep guy.
Developing.
But I will say the unfortunate thing is that Jets fans, as a commenter on my site put it, you cannot praise the Jets enough to make Jets fans not want to spit in your face.
That's interesting.
You cannot possibly say enough good things about this team, about their players and their coach and the way that they played, to make Jets fans not want to kill you, which is very strange. You don't get the same thing with the Steelers or the Ravens or Packers or any number of other teams. But it's not a question of trying to make excuses or anything like that. They played really well, and they coached really well. And there was a bit of a straw man where I thought that people afterwards were saying, boy, people were questioning Rex Ryan's coaching. Nobody ever questioned Rex Ryan's coaching. Who was questioning Rex Ryan's coaching? People questioned Rex Ryan's private life. They questioned the way he acts towards the media. No one ever questioned Rex Ryan's ability to build defensive schemes.
Let me ask you this. The one thing that I was shocked by yesterday was how the Jets were just getting to Brady. When you look at the stuff that you guys measure during the year, did anybody even remotely pressure Brady like that? Where did their offensive line rank? The best offensive line?
I think they were 3rd or 4th in adjusted sack rate, but it's hard to measure based on that because sometimes that's not a question of whether teams are getting to a guy. That's a question of a guy's ability to throw the ball away. I mean, certainly the Indianapolis offensive line did not play well this year, but Indianapolis was still number 1 in adjusted sack rate because Manning just has a really great pocket presence and ability to throw the ball away under pressure. I don't think the offensive line is the problem. Certainly certain places are getting older. But, I mean, if you think about the 2 tackles, the younger tackle is Vollmer, and he's the one who Ellis was abusing all night.
I thought they dominated our offensive line.
Yeah, the thing is that seems to happen in random games. It didn't happen in the first 2 Jets games. I don't know why it all of a sudden happened last night. Certainly, who knows why players play better in certain games than others? Are they just feeling better that day? Or is it just a health thing? Is it a scheme thing? Is it just random chance? I don't know why, but for some reason, yesterday, Ellis had his best game of the year.
I know. And I thought that was going to be New England's biggest advantage in this game was that the Jets didn't have a traditional collapse the pocket type of pass rush that they had to use gimmicks to get to Brady. And then yesterday they just collapsed the pocket.
Well, a little bit, but mostly it was the coverage, I think. There were points when no one could get to Brady, and he still couldn't find anyone open. And then there were points when there was no one open, and they were getting to him.
True, but they were hitting him, though. And I think, I don't know, it reminded me a little of the Giants game in that he got hit a few times, and it kind of changed how comfortable he seemed.
I would guess a little bit that they will blitz more against the Steelers.
Yeah. What else? What other reactions did you have to what happened in round 2? Anything shock you?
Around the whole league, you mean?
Yeah, the 4 games.
Well, I'm a little shocked that Green Bay pulled away from Atlanta so much. I thought Green Bay had the better chance to win, but I don't think I expected them to dominate quite so much.
It was Rodgers.
Rodgers is playing very, very well.
It's tough because if you're going to do statistically who had the best playoff game, you wouldn't be able to factor in. I'm not just talking about this, like just, big picture. You wouldn't be able to factor in the 5 or 6 times that he just seemed to somehow, like Houdini, get out of those sacks.
Yeah, we need a Houdini stat. Him and
really
Roethlisberger would lead the league in that thing. Vic, 2.
That's a good stat.
Vic, 2, the Houdini move.
Josh Freeman would be up there. When you have the guy sacked and he doesn't get sacked and he actually makes a play.
Tackles. When the tracking of broken tackles this year, I did ask people to track when a quarterback broke a tackle. In other words, broke out of a sack. I should go look to see how many of those we counted. But
who would you name that after?
When he does that.
Who would you name it after? Would you call it a Houdini?
We could call it the Houdini.
I like that. It seems like it would be fairly easy to track, you know.
Yeah, I don't know how well people were, because normally when we think broken tackles, people are concentrating on what the receiver does after the catch or what a runner does. But I do want to track when a guy gets out of a sack like that, yeah. Rodgers does that a lot, and he just played really, really well. And both number one seeds out, you know. Seattle-Chicago really had nothing shocking. I think the only thing shocking about that game were how many traumatic injuries the Seahawks had.
Yeah, not
and that's
good
not
luck.
shocking in a wow, what a great thing. That's shocking in a wow, what a terrible thing.
Yeah.
And the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game was a typical close Baltimore-Pittsburgh game. They're all like that. They're all great games. Great things happen. The helmet catch by – what's with the helmet catches in the last few years? I don't know. Antonio Smith, you know, this is a guy who is hardly used at all during the season, except in special teams, very similar to Tyree. And that catch made the comeback. I mean, without that catch, I think that game goes to overtime.
So we got 2 games next week. Packers at Bears. Packers are favored by 3.
Yeah, and I think that even though the Bears are playing better now than they probably have been for the whole season, the Packers are playing so well right now that I think that that's a very accurate line, that the Packers are the better team, even with home field advantage. And that's not to take anything away from how good the Bears have been this year, but, I mean, the Packers were the number one team in the NFC by our ratings.
You said that last week. You said that they were the best NFC team.
I mean,
by every calculation.
Our number one team is out, but our 2 and 3 teams are still in, and that's the Steelers and the Packers.
What about the weighted DVOA that you guys have that captures how
those
teams are playing?
At this point, even despite this week, the Patriots would be number 1. The Steelers
Really?
are 2, and the Packers are 3.
The Packers. Was there a tipping point for them the last 6 weeks? Was there a
No,
specific
I mean,
game?
they've really, you know, when they lost games earlier in the season, it was generally close. The Detroit game is a very weird one, where Rodgers couldn't score any points in the first half and got injured.
Yep.
And then Flynn played the second half. And it does show that you can shut them down, because the Detroit shut Rodgers down for that first half before he was injured. And it's not enough to just say Rodgers missed half the game, because they only scored points once Flynn came in. But I don't think it's a question of any turning point. They've had a couple of games where they weren't quite as good, but for the most part, they've been an excellent team all season, and their losses have been close.
Cousin Sal and I, before you came on, were talking about how some teams, their identity is a certain way, but it almost, when you see them in other venues, it seems like, oh, man, that would have been a so-and-so. And to me, the Packers seem like they would have been such a good dome team. Maybe we don't think of them that way.
Their offense, because all the great receivers that they have, and if you think about it, it would be even better if Jermichael Finley was still active.
True.
But the defense also is playing so well. Woodson's very good. Tramon Williams has dramatically improved. You know, their safeties aren't half bad. That's just a really good all-around team. Would
you agree that maybe outdoors at Soldiers Field, if it's 20 and cold, is kind of the best way to play them?
No, because if you think about it, think back to all those Patriots games. Passing game doesn't actually suffer in the winter.
Yeah, like that Bears snow game.
It does, but unless there's high winds or rain, snow doesn't stop it and cold doesn't stop it, and I don't see any reason why those things should stop Aaron Rodgers.
Wind would stop them, though.
If there's a very heavy wind.
Chicago. It's going to be Chicago in
But there's still not always a heavy wind. I mean, sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. They can still ride that with shorter passes. I mean, they can run those little slants to Donald Driver all day long, especially against zone coverage.
What do we make of that that Jets 9, Green Bay 9, Jets nothing game? Does that seem like the weirdest game of the year in retrospect?
That was a very strong game for those two defenses.
Yeah.
Those two defenses played really well that day.
It's hard for me to believe that those teams could combine for 9 points.
Well, the Jets' offense is not good. I mean, it's got some good players, but it's their defense that's good. Their defense is what makes that team.
I know, but I'm saying if those two teams met in the Super Bowl,
there would be more than 9 points. Yes, that's abnormal.
Very abnormal. So it doesn't sound like you're leaning either way, or you're leaning toward the Packers.
I'm leaning Packers a little bit, but, you know, it's close. Certainly, you know, it's funny, you make a pick and people think it's like an absolute thing, but that's not really the way football works.
You're giving like a probability pick. You're saying
the Bears
it's more
have
probable
a lot of
this will happen.
that they could do. I'd say 55% Packers. If you look at a few things, Green Bay has the best pass defense in the league by our numbers, but they have a weakness against tight ends. And Chicago has a very good tight end who had a very big role in the game against Seattle.
I was thinking of yesterday when Greg Olsen was one-on-one with Laura Malloy. That's not a good matchup.
No, that's not a good matchup. And,
yeah.
Against Morgan Burnett's not that a great matchup either. I think he's still the safety for Green Bay with Atari Bigby not really playing. Otherwise, you run against them a little bit. Now, the Bears did not have a great run offense this year, but they can run when they, sometimes. They're really awful running in short yardage. I will say that Green Bay's defense was very strong on short yardage runs this year, and Chicago's offense was very poor on short yardage runs. So I know that before the Jets-Patriots game, my advice to Rex Ryan was go for it on fourth down because you run in those situations so much better than the Patriots do. In this game, my advice to Chicago would be don't go for it on 4th and 1. It's not really your strength.
Right. The other game, Pittsburgh at the Jets, what do you see there?
Well, it's interesting. This is going to come out a little bit in the Any Given Sunday article that Vince Verhey is writing for ESPN for tomorrow. But Sanchez is much worse when you blitz him. And I think one of the big mistakes that the Patriots made is that they didn't blitz hardly at all. I think Sal Palantonio said they blitzed 6 times or something. Now, what's interesting also is that Roethlisberger also is not as good when you blitz him, although the drop-off is not quite as severe as it is for Sanchez. So I would expect to see a lot of pass pressure from these two teams coming up against each other.
I don't know what to make of it.
I think it comes down to Pittsburgh has the better quarterback. They both have really strong defenses. I like Pittsburgh's secondary. Pittsburgh's secondary is a little better well-rounded. The Jets have better top corners. They both have good receivers. They both have reasonably good running backs. The Jets probably have a better offensive line and special teams, and Pittsburgh has a better quarterback. So I like Pittsburgh, I'd say like 60-40. But honestly, it doesn't matter. If I said right now that the Jets were absolutely assured to win the game, and then the Jets actually did win the game, Jets fans would think that I had predicted that the Steelers would win the game.
You sound angry about the Jets fans.
I mean, they're really not nice people. But the Steelers, I think the Steelers by a little bit. But the Jets, obviously we saw this week, it's strong. Now, the thing, they're going to have to come up with a different game plan, I think, because this is the opposite. The Steelers have the thing that the Patriots didn't have. They have that game-breaking deep receiver. So you've got to game plan them really differently. I think if you put Cromartie on him as the guy with a little more speed, with a safety deep, and you put Revis on Ward, that would be excellent coverage. But at that point, Pittsburgh really has to depend on Heath Miller and Rashard Mendenhall, which is tough against the Jets' run defense, but mostly Heath Miller and those guys like Sanders and Antonio Brown, who didn't do much during the season, to really come through for them against the lesser Jets cornerbacks.
I'm going to defend the Jets fans for a second. I do think that the people who are probably posting on message boards and people like that are exaggerated versions of...
Well, that's generally true of fan bases. That's generally true of fan bases in general.
No, but I think Jets fans, because I think there was a lot of, there was a certain kinship with Patriot fans and Jets fans through when we started winning the Super Bowls, but that was always kind of our doppelganger. We both, neither of us had really had any success. They had won the one Super Bowl, but other than that, we're just two fan bases that always got kicked in the teeth. And, when you think about it, that was the second biggest win in the history of their franchise yesterday. They haven't had a lot of laughs for the Jets fans.
It wasn't the second biggest game. I thought it was really strange for Rex Ryan to say that. Like the 98.
No, the second biggest win.
The 90, I know, but before the game, when he was talking about how important the game was, it's more important than the 98 AFC Championship game against
which Denver. They could have won. They were in that game.
Last year's game against Indy,
Right. Yeah, it's what I think. I think that was part of, in retrospect, pretty smart because he was talking in these big absolutes.
He was trying to motivate his team.
Yeah.
He did a great job of it.
He did. He took all the pressure off everybody else. He put it right on him. He took all the pressure off Sanchez, who nobody talked about all week, even though he was terrible in that Indianapolis game.
Yeah,
and it was all about Rex Ryan.
It's amazing how much better he looks. He seems to look better against the Patriots than anyone else. I've never been a big believer in the idea of certain guys raising their game in the playoffs. Because if you could raise your game, why wouldn't you raise your game all the time?
There is something weird, something that's unique to him. It's
different than a guy who's, a good player becomes great in the playoffs. This is a guy who so far has been poor and becomes good in the playoffs, although he wasn't really against Indianapolis.
He was pretty bad against Indianapolis.
I don't think he's quite reached, big shot Rob status.
No, I don't think that either. But he does have an ability to, no matter what happened, in the previous 40 minutes of the game or 50 or whatever, he does have an ability to make really nice throws that come out of nowhere.
Right. But
that Santonio Holmes throw was a fantastic throw.
I don't think the throw was that good. I thought
What are you talking about? The throw and the catch. He had to put the throw in the perfect spot for Holmes to even touch it.
But I think if he throws it a little earlier, doesn't Holmes not have to quite do that to catch it?
Well, he got the one break on the Braylon Edwards-McCourty touchdown. McCourty had him so well covered, he was almost like by him. He had him so well covered. Edwards.
That's okay. That was he lost that break when Braylon Edwards defensed his own teammates. That pass that Edwards slapped away that was meant for Holmes.
Yeah, that was another good one.
That was kind of the other side of luck because Holmes had that. I mean, Holmes was open.
So if you had to pick an underdog that you thought was going to win out of the Jets or the Bears, who would you take?
My numbers say the Bears. I would probably say the Jets.
Numbers say the Bears, but your head says the Jets.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because Pittsburgh is the home team. The numbers say that Chicago has a better chance of upsetting Green Bay because Chicago is the home team. But I think after seeing that game plan and thinking, well, now they have another week to change the game plan completely against a very different offense, could they do it? And fluster Roethlisberger? Yeah, they could come up with something. I don't know what it would be, but they could come up with something. So my heart says the Jets have a better chance to win, but the numbers say Chicago has a better chance to win.
And it's weird because
the numbers and my heart both say that likely we will have the Green Bay-Pittsburgh Super Bowl that Michael Silver from Yahoo called the Scalper's Paradise.
Oh, yeah. The weird part for me is that I watched that Jets-Steelers game a few weeks ago. The Jets won, and they had a little more urgency in that game. They were at a different point of their season than Pittsburgh was. But I think we just learned yesterday that it doesn't really matter what happened when the two teams played the regular season. It seems like it matters who's hot right now.
Well, not even that, because the Patriots were the hotter team coming into that game.
But we hadn't played in 2 weeks, though.
Every game is its own thing, and every game requires its own game plan, and every game has its own sense of starts in a different way and flows in a different way. And you can't judge a game based on what happened earlier. And
I don't know if you could say the Pats were the hotter team, though, because we hadn't really played.
They had blown teams out for weeks.
But we didn't play last week. We had that easy Miami game. They rolled over.
But the rolling over. Remember, my belief is that big wins over bad teams are better than very tight wins. And the Jets had a huge win over Buffalo, just clobbered them. But in general, certainly towards the end of the season, the Patriots were super hot.
I know, but I'm starting to wonder if you're better off getting punched in the chin at least once, somewhere close to when you're...
They did get punched in the chin in Week 9 by Cleveland.
That was Week 9. It was 2 months ago.
True, but it was a punch in the face.
The Green Bay was like, when they played Green Bay, it was like a slight slap on the cheek. But it wasn't like the Jets, like they had to claw back against the Colts, and they got a lot of momentum from that game. And the Pats are just kind of sitting there feeling good about themselves.
Yeah, I just don't feel that. I don't feel there was a lack of urgency on the Patriots. I don't feel they came out flat. I just feel like the Jets were just better. Sometimes both teams play hard, and one team just plays a little better and has a better game plan.
I disagree with you on the flat thing. I thought the Pats seemed flat that whole game.
I think
the Jets were flying around.
The Jets to say that. I think that the Jets.
It has nothing to do with the Jets. I'm just saying it seemed the Pats to me, like think about when they went into Pittsburgh, how fired up that team was, and you could just tell in the first quarter we are fired up, we're locked in.
Well, they were moving pretty easily on that first drive till Brady threw the bad interception.
Yeah, but who did you feel watching that game yesterday was more locked in? Jets.
But that's because they were winning. And they were celebrating because they were winning. If it had been the other way around...
They weren't winning early. Didn't we score first? I can't remember.
Yeah,
now.
but I don't think that they were really celebrating and going crazy and stuff till they had a lead.
It just seemed like they were more locked in. And we had that. The Welker gets benched in the first series. It was a weird energy. I don't know. And I was getting emails from my friends in the stands. Like,
I thought the Welker benching was odd because, hey, he gave an interview. What? Who cares?
I think it was because he didn't follow the Patriots' way.
Whatever. I think sly, witty puns should be the Patriots' way.
I think
I'll take sly and witty puns over brash trash talking any day. That's why I'll take Nick Mangold's tweet about Spygate over all the nutsy things that Bart Scott said. Nick Mangold showed wit.
Well, it does seem like if you're a football team, maybe it's better to have that edge than to have that, oh, we're sorry, maybe we shouldn't have said anything kind of edge, which is what the Patriots had.
I think if you think if you think of it as three things, you either have brash, trash talking, quiet determination, or gee, we're sorry we said anything. You want to stay away from number 3.
Well, we used to be quiet.
I don't think there's anything wrong with number 2.
We used to be the quiet determination team, and the Welker thing kind of screwed that up.
You want to know who kind of has quiet determination right now? The Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Are they talking in the press? Not as far as I can tell. Still went away from the Super Bowl.
Well, we'll see what happens. 2 good games. I'm trying to remember. These could both be 3-point lines. I'd have to look this up, but usually one of the lines is a little higher.
Well, we got the 3 and the 3.5. Isn't the line in this Pittsburgh 3.5?
Right now. It's 3. Apparently, that's what Cousin Sal said. It's 3, but they're minus 130. So, and then I think the Packers line will probably move to 3.5.
Which is interesting.
Aaron Rodgers phenomenon
against the home team.
It's the Aaron Rodgers thing. This is going to be a whole week of people going nuts for him.
Chicago fans listening, gamblers are dissing you.
Yeah.
You better be loud and prove them wrong.
It's so tough because the Seahawks, the injuries, and they were so bad. I don't think people can even figure out what to make of this Bears team.
I'm not sure I was even awake.
It did get exciting when it looked like they had a chance to get the 2-point for the
backdoor
push.
Cover?
Yeah, there was a backdoor push, which is even more unexciting. Anyway, all right, Aaron Schatz, we will talk to you before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we'll talk in 2 weeks.
Crunch those numbers.
Will do.
All right, talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right, that's it for part 1 of the Round 3 Mega Playoff Pod. Stay tuned for part 2 with Mike Lombardi and Chad Millman on ESPN.com or iTunes. Check it out. Until then.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.